Good morning, everybody. This is Lois Frankel here, a member of Congress here in Palm Beach County. And I want to thank everyone for being with us, because today we're going to talk about what appears to be a new public health crisis that is mounting along with, of course, the coronavirus pandemic. And that is the increase of domestic violence cases. We have some really great people. We have a roundtable. It's going to be informal. I'm going to tell you who is with us today. She's out of sight right now, but she'll be back soon, and that's Senator Lori Berman. Lori, are you back? I think she went to get a telephone call. We have from Jewish Family Services, Tara Laxer and Sara Walsh. We have from the CEO of Aid to Victims of Domestic Abuse, Pam O'Brien. We have Alexa Cox, who is a special prosecutor for domestic violence at the state attorney's office. And then we have various people from my staff. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to just kick it off just with a few comments, and then we're going to just like to hear people's input. So, listen, we know life has changed for just about everybody. If you're not an essential worker, you're staying at home. We also know this, that when there is extra stress in life, especially economic stress, we know that has exaggerates the number of people who are feeling in crisis and potentially increasing domestic violence. It's people who are victims are now basically prisoners in their own home with their abusers. So today we're going to hear from some experts in the field, and we want to discuss what folks who feel threatened, men or women or children who feel threatened, what they do. So let me kick off, and let's start with you, Pam. Again, introduce yourself and tell us what your thoughts on this.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Pam O'Brien. I'm the CEO of AVDA, Aid to Victims of Domestic Abuse, which is a state-certified domestic violence center in Palm Beach County. And this is a time of critical importance for survivors because they are stuck at home with a dangerous person, and it is highly likely that they are experiencing domestic abuse. It is a time we like to encourage ourselves as well as our community. This is a time for you really to help your neighbor. If you hear something, go ahead, make that call to 911. You may be saving a life. We encourage survivors, maybe take a look at the options that are available. There is a statewide hotline number that if you call that, it will connect you with the center that is closest to you. And that number is 800-500-1119. Now that operates 24/7. I know we at AVDA are in touch on a daily basis with the other centers around the states. So we know who has space available. Most of us do have space available. We are seeing that our hotline calls are not going up, even though we do know that the domestic violence crimes appear to be up. And that is perhaps an indicator that survivors don't feel safe enough to call. So this is where the community can be a big help, and be very attentive to signs and trust your judgment and trust your instincts. If you think there's something going on, there probably is.
Sara, can you explain, and maybe Alexa, you can also comment on this, why it is in times of stress, social isolation like we have now, that it's a more dangerous time for victims of domestic violence?
Well, I think.
Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I'm Sara Walsh from Jewish Family Service, Alpert Jewish Family Service in West Palm. And I'm the director of the domestic abuse program. And what we do know, which is what you mentioned earlier, Congresswoman, is that when there's times of stress, this adds much more pressure on a family unit. So when you already have domestic abuse occurring in the home, emotional, physical, that all these pressures are going to add to the stress of the home, and it's just going to add additional danger to the person who's being abused. One of the things that I know is that many children and women and men who are being abused use work and school to escape their situations. It's their safe haven, and this is not happening now. So if you can only imagine how frightened many of these victims are in the home with their abuser 24/7.
Yes, and just
Yeah, go ahead, Alexia. Thank you for being with us.
hi, my name is Alexia Cox, and I am the chief of the domestic violence at the state attorney's office. Thank you for having me. One of the things that I'd like to just add to that is, we have a lot of different family dynamics in Palm Beach County, obviously, and we also see a lot of domestic violence cases that involve family members with mental health issues or substance abuse issues. You have people who take care of their elderly parents. You have families that include, grandparents, aunts and uncles, people that live in one home together, and there are a lot of, issues that might be going on in that family structure in that home. So we focus a lot on domestic violence involving spouses or intimate partner violence, but there is another layer, another dynamic where we have so many people who are at home, possibly living in the same residence, and there's violence that erupts in those households as well. And the one thing that I just want to say, in case I don't get an opportunity to say it, even though we're not doing a lot of court hearings and we're only doing essential court hearings, I do want people who are victims, if they're listening, to know that you can still get an injunction during this time period. You can still seek an injunction, you can still receive an injunction. So just because you hear that the courts are only hearing certain matters, please don't let that be a barrier for you seeking help through the court system if you need it.
Alexia, I got two quick questions for you. First of all, are you hearing from law enforcement that there is actually an uptick in domestic calls?
I have heard that there are some days that there are sharp spikes in calls, and then other days there are lulls. So I can't give you an exact number, but I have heard that firsthand from a law enforcement officer that some days they're flooded with dispatch is flooded with domestic violence calls, and then other days it's back to normal. So I think it really ebbs and flows, but I do believe everyone is feeling that there's a ripple coming through the stay-at-home order. There has been a ripple effect in domestic violence.
And the second question is, how does somebody access the courts now if they need to get some kind of injunction? What do they do?
Well, the courthouse is open for people to actually obtain the packet. We have a lot of great partners who I tell people to take advantage of with the local shelters. I know there's a project that the YWCA offers, where there's actually someone who helps you get an injunction and helps you write out the paperwork. And then there's programs and outreach through AFDA and a lot of our shelter partners in the area who will actually help you get those resources. But on the 5th floor is victim services. Now, I don't know if victim services is open right now to help, but you can still get the paperwork from the courthouse or online, fill it out. And the first step is to actually obtain a temporary restraining order, which is ex parte, meaning it's just paper that you give to the judge, you fill out, and you say, why it is that you feel that you are in an immediate threat of harm. And then the judge reviews that on his own or her own and makes a decision as to whether or not an injunction is necessary. And generally you can find that out within a few hours. The judges will generally have a decision rendered. And then if you get the injunction, they will give you a service copy that you can give to law enforcement just in case you run across the abuser. You can have someone serve that person, and then law enforcement will also be given a packet to go out and try to serve them. So then you get a hearing. And that hearing date, everyone is told to be there. And then that's when both sides actually go before the judge, and you know, the petitioner victim gets an opportunity to be heard, and the respondent accused gets an opportunity to be heard as well. And then the judge will render a decision as to whether a final injunction for protection is necessary. And then the judge will also determine how long that can last.
Okay, Pam, I want to ask this, and I think it's Sara. So that's quite a few steps somebody has to go through. I'm assuming that, Alexia, that it would be considered essential if people needed to get that kind of help, that they would be not violating the stay-at-home order to seek that.
Yes.
But I want to, Pam, tell us again, what is the simplest? You're at home abuser. You could be in very, very close quarters. You are allowed to step out of your house, I hope, or if you can, or get to a bathroom or whatever. Tell us the simplest way for someone to get help.
The best thing somebody could do is to call that hotline, because they can work with you to develop a personalized individual safety plan that works for you. Each situation is so different from another situation that there is no one-fits-all recipe for how to be safe. It really, we rely heavily on the information that the survivor shares in terms of, she is, and I say she, most survivors are women, so she is the one most likely to know what triggers the perpetrator. And so we encourage the survivors to try and reach out to make that call to the hotline, even if they don't want to come in for shelter. They can sneak away, get a few minutes to make the call, perhaps while they're on the way to the store or something. We can help with some tips in terms of what can provide the best scenario for that family at that time.
And there is shelter space available?
There is, yes.
What precautions are being taken in regard to the coronavirus for people at the shelters?
Well, when new people are coming into our shelters right at this time, because we're under the shelter-in-place order, we go over this on the hotline call before somebody makes the decision to come in. We will ask the incoming people to quarantine in their room for 14 days. We will bring all the food to their doorstep. We will make it as easy as possible. The rooms are very nice, big, comfortable, relaxing, beautiful place to be. So, and it's safe. So we do ask for that 14-day quarantine, and that is how we can help ensure that we don't bring COVID into our shelter property.
Okay, thank you very much. Did anyone want to add to that? It sounds to me, so the crisis line seems to be the simplest entry point. Would you tell everybody that number again?
There is a statewide number that if you call, you will be connected to the shelter, the certified shelter or domestic violence center in your region. And that number is 800-500-1119. And it's answered 24/7 by live trained advocates. I also want to add too, state certified domestic violence centers are authorized to help victims in acquiring getaway money through the Victims of Crime Act. And those funds are actually funds that come to the state from fines that perpetrators pay into the courts. So it's not our tax dollars, it's penalty money set aside to help victims relocate. There are some requirements that go along with obtaining that money, but certified centers such as AFDA or the YWCA's Harmony House can assist victims with that. And we have legal advocates who can accompany the survivor through the court system so she doesn't have to do that on her own. And we're very busy, so we are
so you're
business as usual.
Yes. So some I would say helpful news is in the latest action by the Congress in the CARES Act, we provided another $45 million for the Family Violence Prevention Services Act and $2 million for the National Domestic Violence Hotline to address this rising need. That money should be flowing back soon through the state services like yours, Pam. But we know that is not enough. And just to let you know that myself, with other members, we have sent a letter to our leadership asking for more funding for domestic violence. Hope that will be in one of our next packages and certainly in our appropriations funding. Let me see who else was. Lori Berman. I know you've been very active at the state level, Senator Berman. Would you like to comment on this today, please?
Sure, absolutely. Well, a couple things are going on, as many of you probably know from having read in the newspaper. We have a bit of a crisis in our domestic violence coalition because the head of the coalition improperly took salary money, which she should not have been taking. So unfortunately, there's not a lot of leadership coming down from the state, but we still, the agency is still running, and I'm glad they're, giving the money that they need to give out. We also deal a lot with the Victim Services Unit here in Palm Beach County, and I have their phone number, which I can give out to people. It is 561-355-24, the crisis 2418, and then there's a crisis hotline number, which Pam already mentioned, 1-866-891-7273. I know that they are doing a lot, and they also work with legal aid. There's a lot of injunctions being, there's about 60 to 80, I think, per day that they're, per week, 60 to 80 injunctions are being filed right now as we speak, 60 to 80. And they're working through it with the Victim Service Unit. So, know that there are resources. Some of the things that I think we might want to consider is maybe safe words and having them at like a pharmacy or something like that, or even at a supermarket, so that if a victim of domestic violence was able to get out of the house and they went to the supermarket and used the safe word, at least someone could be alert to the situation. And those are just some thoughts that we're trying to think of, because it's a really dangerous time, we all know, for people who are victims of domestic violence. When you're in this quarantine situation, it's even tremendously worse. So whatever we can do as a state and with the Congress and and with our local partners who are really on the front line, and thank you all, and our sheriff's office also is out there handling a lot of the calls. So thank you for everything you're doing, and let's continue to work together so that we can make sure that we can protect these people.
Alexia, I saw you shaking your head, and I just to ask you and the others, is that something that could be put in place? A safe word, has that ever been?
Well, I'm sure it's something that could be put in place. I think it's a great idea. We've always, recommended. Now with everyone ordering takeout and to-go food, and I'm sure you all probably saw the commercial, maybe it was a year back or so, where someone was ordering a pizza, and this would be the perfect time because everyone's ordering takeout and calling in orders. So just maybe putting the word out there that if you're in this type of a crisis and the only person that you can call is the delivery guy, maybe letting him know, I need help. And I think that there's been a positive response from businesses helping women in those situations, because I think someone will know, hey, I need to call 911, and it works.
And women have called 911 and said, I'd like to order a pizza, so that 911 caller knows that there's a problem, and she's not tipping off her abuser that she's called 911.
Safe word, I'd like to order a pizza?
Well, that was the commercial that too. So,
well, you know what, Lori, I think you've introduced a really good idea. And what I would ask when we get the call, Alexia and Pam and Sara, maybe you could we'll get you your contact information. You could put your heads together and see if you come up with a plan of action on that. And
yes. And
else?
Congresswoman, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but there's also text, you can text 911. Those
Okay.
services are available. So I just wanted to put that out there. You can send a text message to 911.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so listen, this is, the purpose of our roundtable today, to get these ideas out. You can text 911. You can call the hotline. Is there a text or an email to the hotline, Pam?
There is, you can leave a message on our webpage. The webpage is avdaonline.org. There is a place where if you type in a message, we will get back with you and follow up. We are actually working with our sister centers now to look at implementing a more, a safer texting process. So that is something that's on our radar. Can I add one comment too, just following up on Representative Berman's comment about the Florida Coalition? As one of the entities that received money through them, and as well as I was one of the ones who, along with many of my colleagues, sent a letter to the governor expressing our appreciation for the investigation. I'm happy to say that those of us on the front line running the centers, everything is flowing beautifully. The control is now in the hands of the Department of Children and Family Services, and they used to administer the money before the coalition did. So it's working, which is great. It's been a challenge to have to deal with the media concerns about that, but to funders, but it really is working fine. The money is flowing, and I believe that DCF has hired most of the staff from the coalition, but not any of the staff that are subject to investigation.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, before we go,
I just want to add one thing in relation to, I'm sorry, I just want to add one more thing. In relation to how we can keep people safe, I think that the media could publish some very basic safety planning. For example, avoiding the bathroom and the kitchen. Those are very dangerous places to be when you're in an argument. There's knives and other things that could hurt you. Some of those basic safety planning measures could be published and really for maybe some victims who don't know this information.
Okay, so, really terrific suggestions here. So we've gotten some suggestions on what to avoid, where to go to parts of the home, stay away from where something might be a weapon if you can. You have ways now to text, call, email for help. And remember, you can reach out if you have to go to a pharmacy or you go even to a delivery service there, or even a neighbor. Reach out for help because our crisis team is here and working. I thank Dave Ehrenberg, who's sent us Alexia this morning. Thank you she's working from home every day. We got Pam and Sara, who with their services, they're working every day. So there are folks who are available to help victims of domestic violence to save themselves and their children or even their pets. So with that, I'm going to we're going to open this to the press. Before I do that, let me just add some good news that may, at least for time being, relieve some of the economic stress people are feeling. And that is today, the first round of the stimulus money or the relief money that Congress passed is now in people's banks. The $1,200 for anyone who's earning up to $75,000 or $2,400 for a family of two who earn up to $150,000, with $500 also for any children under age 16. That is very good news. Now here's the thing. If the IRS does not have the bank information, you're not going to get a check for quite a while. And here's how to remedy that. If you have a bank account, you can go to the IRS website, irs.gov/coronavirus, put in your bank information, and you can get your relief check immediately. Maybe, folks, that'll give you some relief from the calls for a while, if we can take some economic stress off of it. All right, thank you, everybody. Let's now open
Thank
this
you.
to the questions.